Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast where we talk about all things 3DO, the company, and everything in between. I'm Bill, and this is Threk. How you doing, Threk?
I'm picking my nose, Bill. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm not dying anymore. I'm
That's good.
cold, cold, but hey, it's winter. That's what happens.
Exactly. It gets cold. Who fucking cares?
A lot of people do.
Oh yeah, so like our southern friends who just like cannot stand the cold at all, and I'm just like, I don't give a shit.
It snowed in Florida. It was really funny watching watching like the videos of them like reacting to it because they had no idea what to do.
Or yeah, like in Louisiana or Texas where it's very rare.
Mm. And then it
Yeah,
snows and they just don't know what to do. So like you watch
they're
the
like,
videos,
I
watch the
don't
video.
know.
See, people up here drive like shit in the snow. When you watch the videos of
Oh
people
yeah.
down south, it's like holy shit.
Oh, it's funny though.
It is for for a little bit, and then it kind of loses its luster, and you're like, oh yeah, this is just the world.
Exactly.
Uh, I saw you started a new job.
Yes, I did. I'm 2 days in. My first day, I didn't really do a lot because they were working on like getting my computer and everything set up. And then today, I basically spent all day looking through all of the training manuals. Literally, it was like 8 hours of just going through all of these like manuals and taking little quizzes here and there, and kind of fried my brain a little bit, to be honest. But at the end they're like, "Oh, great, to run everything now." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, totally."
Yeah.
So hopefully tomorrow, I'll actually get started on doing my job properly. So
I don't know what would be more entertaining, that or I was rebuilding robots all day, like they were broken.
that'd be entertaining for sure.
It is until like you get your some of the older coworkers will be who usually so they're training me to do it because they want like they're worried about eventually the older guys are going to start retiring and they need people that know how to do this stuff.
Yeah,
And the older guys like to use those jobs to milk it and like kind of stretch things out so they can collect that overtime.
yeah.
And I did the first one really fast, and they were kind of like, "Slow down, you're going too fast."
They'd probably give me shit too because I'd be like, "No, I just want to get it done."
Well, I the thing is like I know how to milk things when I need to. The problem is like it takes me a little while to figure out how because sometimes like you'll do things you'll be like, "Oh, I'm done." And I'm like, they're like, "No, no, you got to milk it." I'm like, "Okay." So then I'm like, "All right, I might as well just change all these screws that are probably fine, but I can put new ones in because I got to kill time."
I couldn't imagine. I mean, I've had to kill time before in jobs, but
Well, we're
it,
slow
it,
right
it
now, so it's kind of like they want us to kind of stretch things out.
yeah. I mean, it's easy when say you're like me and you're working like a desk job where you can just kind of like, open like a like Discord or something else and just kind of browse on there a little bit, and hopefully nobody's peeking over your shoulder to be like, "Well, get off of there, you bad person." So, and what's funny is my work computer, most websites I try to go to, it does the whole like, oh, it's like a privacy thing, or they might be trying to steal stuff or whatever. And it's just like going to like VGC or something. But I'm being safe and just not bothering because I don't want it to cause any problems, especially
Yeah,
since I'm brand new. So I'm just glad Discord loaded up just fine so I can so I can just type in there once in a while.
I was laughing, but there was a good point because the area where the robot like repairs go, it's right at the front, right by like where like the break room is and like all the office people walk by. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting there working. I got my radio going with like podcasts playing, and I'm listening to Superpod. And Aaron said some ridiculous thing, and everybody in the cafeteria just looks over and they're like, "What the fuck was that?" And I'm just like,
Good job, Aaron. You ruined Bill's day.
"Oh no, I thought it was funny. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what they think."
You've learned not to care.
Oh, I learned really fast. So it there's a hilarious mixture of things you'll hear. Like I got one coworker who listens to nothing but Ben Shapiro, and I'm like, this is
Oh
wonderful.
boy.
Exactly what
Oh
I want to hear
boy.
all day. And I got another who listens to nothing but morning talk radio, and it's just like this mixture of things. And I'm just like, you know what? They don't care what they're listening to, so I'm gonna listen to what I want because If
Fair enough.
I'm not going to complain about them, they're not going to complain about me. We live in perfect harmony. It's great.
Perfect harmony. Sounds
Yeah.
good, man. So,
Oh,
but yeah, we'll see how this new job goes. So, I'll keep you all updated.
I'm glad it worked out so far.
Yeah, the weird thing is that they were like, "Oh, you have to take like an hour break for lunch," and I'm not like used to that. And I did it the first day, and I'm like, I don't need an hour, like seriously, especially because it's unpaid. So, like today when I went in, I said to my boss, I'm like, "Hey, is it a big deal if I just like take a half hour and then just leave a half hour early because I'll get my 8 hours in?" And she's like, "I don't care." She said, I would be worried about maybe some other, I guess, employees or something might make a fuss about it, but if that happens, we'll get to it. But
Mm.
yeah, I got my 8 hours in. I'm good, man. Like a half hour is all I need for lunch.
Yeah, an hour is a lot. Like you think that would be great, but then you
Mm-hmm.
actually do it, and you're like, yeah.
The only benefit to it is if you live close to your house, if you work close to your house. So you'd be like, I'm just gonna go home and make lunch. I'll be back.
See, we're not allowed to leave the building during lunch, so it's like,
Oh yeah, we're allowed to leave because we're in the city. So you can just like, if I say I wanted to leave and just go to like like a restaurant down the road or something, I could. But I'm a
be,
cereal packer.
because of security concerns, we're not even allowed to leave unless we punch out, and that's a whole mess that we don't even want to bother with. So
Yeah, I mean we do clock out for lunch, but like they have it to where you clock in and out on your phone, just like a little app, and you just punch in, kind of a thing, no big deal. And there are like security fobs, so I got one to like enter, which they do, I think, because it opens. Because I work at a credit union now, so it opens at like 10, and
yeah,
I usually get there at 9. So, but no big deal.
yeah,
And they're open till 6. But I'm like, I'd rather just, and my hours are to 6. But I'm like, I'll just take a half hour lunch and leave at 5:30, which was much better because then I got home before 6, which was nice,
hmm,
as opposed to getting home at like 6:30 and being like,
yeah.
this kind of sucks.
That's why I've been leaving at 3 lately, just because I want to have at least like some sunlight before it gets dark.
It's not even that. It's just I'd like to have more free time.
True.
Like why am I going to waste a half hour at work just staring at my phone in the break room when I could just come here and stare at my phone?
True.
So
Very true.
yeah. So before we get to the game for this week, I guess we'll do a quick news recap. There wasn't a huge amount of stuff. Xbox did their developer showcase on
Heard
the
good things.
23rd. It was really good. I really enjoyed the show. We got a big showing for Doom the Dark Ages. It's coming out in May, as was the leaks. Looks fantastic. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is coming out in April and is basically like a weird, like a French JRPG or whatever. It's like a weird mixture of like Persona, Lost Odyssey, and like European weirdness or whatever. It looks awesome. I'm all in on it now. Day one on Game Pass. South of Midnight's coming out in early April, which looks interesting. It's definitely they're going for that stop motion animation kind of style to where the characters move like Wallace and Gromit or something. But then there are other elements of it that are 60 FPS, which it looks kind of strange, but I imagine when you sit down and start playing the game and you're getting used to it, it's probably just fine. And from previews of people who played the game, they never complained about it. So,
Nice.
and gameplay wise, I think Chris Novel Console compared it to like Darksiders 2, and that he thinks it kind of looks like that, and it has like that late PS3 360 kind of vibe to it from what the gameplay has been shown. So, which could be a really cool thing. So, we'll see. And then kind of the big one was Team Ninja was the surprise show, where Xbox is publishing Ninja Gaiden 4. So Ninja Gaiden 4 is a real thing being done by Team Ninja and Platinum Games, which is a match made in heaven. Like Platinum making a Ninja Gaiden game, beautiful. I'm fucking in. And it looks like a Platinum game. It has sort of that Bayonetta Astral Chain kind of vibe to it. And Platinum needed some good news after like, Camilla left and he had that whole interview about like, oh, Platinum is going in a direction I'm not happy with, and I think the director of Astral Chain has left. There's a lot of Platinum's in a weird spot right now.
It amazed me how many people, because Kamiya left, they assumed that just meant the studio died, and I'm like, no, they're still around.
Yeah, well, I know that like Tencent has a big investment in them, and I think people are worried about what's going to happen. And yeah, they might just be in a case where they're just kind of changing the guard, and they might be entering like a new era for them where everything still works out just fine. We'll see with Ninja Gaiden 4 how that works out. And then also, Koei Tecmo shadow dropped Ninja Gaiden 2 Black.
I
So they
saw
did
that.
the like, I guess the definitive director's cut, whatever, of the original of Ninja Gaiden 2, which came out, I believe, in 2008 on the 360. I never played it. So I've actually been playing Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I'm in like chapter 7, so I think I'm roughly halfway there. And I think I prefer the more platinum style action games, but this is really good. Like
Yeah,
I'm having a good time with it.
Ninja Gaiden 2 was the one that everyone really liked. I know 3 was the one that people were kind of iffy on.
Yeah, people did
Um,
not like 3. Was that Wii U exclusive, or was this? It was like a
no,
launch title for the Wii U, so it was kind of
it
like
was
front and center.
it was a launch title for the Wii U, but it was on everything. It was kind of like Lost Planet 3, where it was like it wasn't a bad game, but it was just kind of like it was just kind of a disappointment compared to like 2, because everyone loved 2.
Yeah, it might have just been like diminishing returns kind of a thing, by
I
that
think 2,
point.
like
And they
that.
had started doing the Sigmas of 1 and
Yeah,
2, which people aren't really big fans of. I think that's because they make the games easier or something. I'm not quite sure. But everyone liked Ninja Gaiden Black, and I've played a bit of that one. But now that I've had more time with Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, I may go back and try 1, because now it's like I kind of understand how these games are as action games. They're a little bit more rigid than, say, like what Platinum does, which isn't a
yeah.
bad thing, but they just kind of give them a different kind of flair
It's
to them.
interesting because when I saw the trailer for 4, I was really impressed, but at the same time, I'm like, this looks a lot like Shinobi PS2 for some reason.
a game that got overshadowed by Ninja Gaiden at the
It
time.
did. It was like the PlayStation equivalent, because that was like the one Sega series that like went to PlayStation. Because pretty much every Sega series went to Xbox and Nintendo at that point, except for Virtual Fighter and Shinobi for some reason.
Yeah, it was very weird. It was very weird. And those I've never played those Shinobi games, and I love like the arcade Shinobi, the 2 Shinobis on Genesis. Like Shinobi 3 is one of my favorite games on that platform. I still need to sit down and play like Shinobi Legions or Shinobi X, the Saturn one.
Yeah,
But the PS2
Shinobi
ones, I know people really like them. And then it had that sequel that's not called Shinobi.
Nightshade, which
Nightshade. Yeah.
it's a good game, but it's not as good as 2. Like 2 was just such a good game when it came out. There's
Yeah.
also that one on 3DS that nobody remembers, but I own it.
Oh yeah, Shinobi 3D.
Yeah, and it's like a weird
Yeah, I've
side
seen it in like retro
scrolling
stores before.
thing, and it's weird, but I love it at the same time because it's stupid. Kryptonite made
Yeah.
it. It
Yeah,
actually
Shinobi.
it killed Kryptonite.
Oh man, it was their kryptonite. Shinobi's one of those series that I think Sega should have done more with. I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of series they could have done that with. But when they did the whole reveal of, oh, we're reviving a bunch of old franchises, one of them was Shinobi, and it's that like hand drawn 2D art, and that looks great. And hopefully that kind of revives the series a little bit. And who knows, maybe they'll do a nice hefty remaster of that PS2 Shinobi game, because it definitely was under the radar at the time and deserves a second chance. I think if they did a nice remaster, brought it to consoles and PC, I think people would be pleasantly surprised.
It's a
They'd be like,
gorgeous
"Oh,
game.
finally!" It'd be nice to like sit down and play that game properly. So, but we'll see on that.
The
Um,
other big leak that got announced like yesterday was apparently EA is re-releasing Sims 1 and 2 on PC.
that's right. Because The Sims, I think their Twitter account said they're doing something for the 25th anniversary, because it's the 25th anniversary of The Sims this year. God damn, do I feel old as fuck saying that. And then, yeah, the Sims community basically found that they are, porting Sims 1 and Sims 2 to PC with all of the DLC expansion pack or expansions. DLC wasn't a thing then. For 1 and 2, and apparently they're coming out this week, January 31st. Apparently, they're dead set on the date, like because the Sims Community.info has the big leak for it, and they even have a counter at the bottom of the page. Like they're that dead set on that they're coming out. So maybe they know something we don't, or
If
maybe this
that's
is EA's like subtle way of like announcing it is making it through a leak so that people are more interested in it. I don't know. I mean, there's been reports throughout the years of like companies leaking things because it gets more eyeballs on it because it sounds like you're not supposed to know.
if that is coming out this week, we won't be seeing Alex for about a month because my God. It's really funny because like when I posted that around to all the servers, I got two reactions. You either got the people who never really cared for The Sims and they were just kind of like, oh, that's cool. And then you got the Sims fans who were like, oh my God, what the fuck? Holy shit, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. I did see somebody who they said they would just they said EA would rather re-release old Sims games than make a new one because
Well, the
Sims
new
4
ones
is like 10
suck.
years old.
The new ones
Well, the
suck.
Sims 4 is like 10 years old now and it's free
It
to
is.
play.
And they
So
basically
I've
said
I've heard they're working on Sims 5 though.
they supposedly were, and then they claimed they weren't, and then they claimed they were. It's EA, who knows? Maxis is
I'm
dead, so
sure
it's like
I'm sure they're working on a Sims 5. Like it's been 10 years. If it's 25th anniversary, a good way to start it is by porting 1 and 2, which are still beloved games. Like I grew up on The Sims 1. Like I know that game pretty well. I put a lot of time into it. And that's the thing. I don't usually play those kind of games. But I found myself liking Sims 1 as a kid. I don't know. I don't know. It was one of the few games that ran on my PC. I think that's
it's
probably why I liked it.
it's an interesting thing. If they, I have no idea what they're going to price these things at. If they
Yeah,
do like,
the leak does not have like what they're going to be priced at. I don't think they'll be priced that bad. I can't see EA charging more than say $20 for each of these.
honestly, 20 a piece, that's not
Oh,
bad for the amount
20
of
a
shit you're
piece
getting.
or maybe do like 30 in a bundle with like both of them on Steam, like get them both for $30. And
What's
I'd be like,
insane is
maybe.
if EA does do this, this is going to print money because Sims
Oh
fans
yeah.
are fucking insane. I say this as a Sims fan. Like, we'll fucking buy that shit in a second and like just like not stop. Like, because like you can go on a Sims binge for like months and like you won't
Yeah.
even realize it.
Well, what's fitting is that The Sims 1 what became the best-selling PC game of all time in the early 2000s, overtaking Myst.
Mhm.
But before we get to Myst, there were two more things I wanted to bring up, and that is a good old Sega, as we talked about before. They've been renewing trademarks like crazy last few weeks, and the one they just recently renewed was Skies of Arcadia, which got a lot of people excited.
I saw
Even
that.
though renewing trademarks doesn't always mean much, it could just mean nothing. But I feel like with all this trademark reviving they're doing and all this stuff, and then that report we got like weeks ago about them maybe looking at a subscription service, I feel like these are going to converge,
Mm.
and we're going to get if there is like a nice subscription service of all the classic Sega games, it has like Skies of Arcadia, all the Echo the Dolphins, all the old Virtua Fighters. Like if it has like Master System, the Dreamcast, and it's this nice big collection thing, people would be fucking hyped to shit for that,
Oh yeah.
genuinely. So I mean, hey, we'll see. I think they're planning something, and also there's something called Sega Forever, which I think is related to all this like reviving the old IP. So it might be coming together. Who really knows?
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Honestly, just if it's even if it's just a re-release, just having the ability to play Skies of Arcadia without having to drop a small fortune would be
Yeah,
nice.
or emulate it,
True. I
But
mean, collectors, are weird like that. So
honestly, I'd rather just if I could just buy it on my Xbox and download it and play it, I'll just do that instead
oh
because
yeah,
it's easier. It's just
well,
like how much is it? Like $10? Sure.
it's better than paying a
It's less
hundred for the
hassle. And I
Dreamcast
get
version.
achievements. I like
Oh yeah,
achievements. So
Like, I doubt they'll port over the Dreamcast version because the Dreamcast version is fucking unforgiving.
They probably will. They'll probably claim it's the Dreamcast version, but it'll be the GameCube version.
Yeah, it'll be Legends because Legends fixed a lot of the bullshit that's in the
Yeah.
Dreamcast version.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I mean, Sega, when they brought over, I think it was Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, when they've done the re-releases of those beyond the GameCube, it was just the Dreamcast versions.
I think Adventure 1, not so much, because Adventure 1 is a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
Because that's like
But,
the most.
but like Adventure 2 wasn't Adventure 2 Battle.
No, you could buy the battle stuff, which
yes,
was so
that's true. That's
stupid.
Yeah, money. Sonic fans. You talk about people who show up and buy shit. Sonic fans.
Adventure 1's most up-to-date port is ridiculous. It is like it's a port of a port of a port of a port.
It's really bad.
That's why that game, like, that's why, like, you see all these, like, whenever someone plays the game for the first time, they're like, why is it so glitchy? I'm like, because it's like spaghetti code all over the place by this point.
Yeah, basically, if you want to play like the best version of the game, as far as I know, it is this guy right here. It is the original. It's the North American Dreamcast version. The Japanese one's a bit iffy, but this one's cleaned up. So you can do that. Or like if you just want to emulate Sonic Adventure 1, just emulate the Dreamcast version.
Yeah, it has more textures.
You get the best experience.
The models look shittier, but to be honest, the highly detailed models kind of look off-putting in that game in the GameCube version.
Yeah, so. The GameCube version's a bit iffy. It's not great, but it's fine. Like if you don't know any better, it's not going to harm you. So, and one more trademark revival before we get started, because I mentioned this to you. Tales of the Abyss. Bandai Namco decided to file a trademark for Tales of the Abyss.
Yeah.
Well, they did Tales of Grace's F.
They did.
And is that any good? Has that been good?
Yeah. It's a great way to play the game.
Okay, the definitive way?
Yeah, because you don't have to. The only other way is on PlayStation 3, and I mean, this is on everything.
But this like has all the PS3 content, but fixes things and
it's the same. It's basically the PS3 version, but they added more skits. They dubbed more of the stuff that wasn't dubbed, so like you have a lot more voice acting. That's why if Abyss happens, I don't want to get my hopes up because Bamco's hurt me too many times in the past. If Abyss does get a re-release, I hope to God they dub the damn skits this time around, because that is like my one gripe with Abyss is that they did not dub the skits.
Does the most recent remaster of Symphonia dub the skits?
No.
Fuck.
But they did for Vesperia and they did for Graces, which gives me hope that they will. But this is Bamco, and Bamco is incredibly lazy with these.
I think with Symphonia, like it had already been remastered and ported already. So I imagine the most recent one was just kind of based on. I think it's based on the PS3 version.
It was, but it's weird. The PS3 version is actually a port of the PS2 version.
Yes.
Which is actually an inferior port to the GameCube original, but it has slightly more content. It runs. That's why, because a lot of people were like, "Why does it run at 30 when the GameCube ran at 60?" It's because it's based off
the PS2 version ran at 30.
Yeah. Which, to be perfectly honest, I never noticed until someone brought it up, and I was like, "Oh yeah." So,
yeah. No, maybe it's just now when a game is 30 or when a game is 60, I can notice it more. But again, if it's stable, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully this Abyss one will happen, because when they did the Tales of Grace's F remaster, they had said that they were planning to do more of these. Like they were gonna bring back more of the games.
There's rumors about Xillia and Xillia 2.
That was the original leak before Grace's was they were going to do Xillia and Xillia 2 as like a combo, right? And then Grace's was seen as a surprise. But my guess is Xillia and Xillia 2 are still on the table. Abyss has to be on the table, I think, because it's like a fan favorite. So they probably should do something with it. And then the other one I see is Berseria, just to get it off of PS4.
True. I mean, to be fair to Berseria, though, you can play it on PS5, so it's not as high priority.
Yeah, But like, if they wanted to port it to like, oh, it is on PC.
Mhm.
So yeah, who knows? That would just be if they wanted to, give it to us filthy Xbox players or something. I don't know.
I'm amazed they
Um,
haven't, to be perfectly honest.
yeah, because like beyond that, I'm like Tales of Hearts, maybe, maybe not.
Hearts is a good game, but I
Is that
really wish they'd give us the DS version.
is Zestria or whatever? Is that the one people don't like?
Ziastera, I think it's what that's that one is weird because it's not a bad game, but it's just so it had to follow the Zelia games, and then it was followed by Berseria, which are like two of the most beloved. And this one was just kind of a dud. Like the story was kind of
Yeah,
meh, and the gameplay wasn't that impressive.
yeah. So yeah, so beyond like those ones, I don't know what other Tales games they would want to bring back. Because something tells me they really wouldn't want to dig into the old stuff and do like Eternia or Rebirth or whatever. Like I don't
I
think
mean,
so.
Rebirth would be nice because it's never been brought over here. Um,
Yeah, but
Innocence, maybe.
yeah, Innocence potentially, but it's just like I think anything that isn't related to Symphonia, I feel like they're kind of hesitant to do.
Yeah, and
Like weirdly enough, I could see a full remake of Fantasia.
that would be cool. The one I doubt we'll ever see is Legendia because that game is such a black sheep to the series. It's not even funny.
Yeah, I've heard about that one. So, but yeah, but hey, if Abyss gets that proper remaster and it looks great and it's priced well, I will buy it and I
I'll
will
buy it.
play
I'll buy it day one. I know Chris will buy it day one, and Beth will probably buy it day one.
it. And I'll probably buy it depending on maybe not day one, depends on how they price it, but
Mm.
it's a game that you guys have done a good job of convincing me that I should probably give it a shot. I mean, again, I need to beat a Tails game anyways. So,
Yeah,
maybe one of these days I'll finally just say fuck it and do Vesperia. But
Vesperia is usually the one I recommend people because it's
yeah.
the most modern, but it's still got the old school charm of the series before it got really weird.
Yeah, and when I tried playing it late last year, I just kind of got busy. So I
Yeah,
just kind of put it down, but I wasn't like super far into it or anything. So it's a game that if I were to start replaying it, I'd probably just pick back up where I was, which
yeah,
isn't
you'd be
that
fine.
far in. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the only other real update is we got new Nintendo Music because that's just a thing
Oh
now.
yeah, I saw that. Was it yesterday?
Hmm. Legends Arceus.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm
Um,
fine with that.
it's at least it's something that's not I wasn't expecting. I still would like
Yeah,
some more variety, but it seems like
I
they're just getting out like new stuff, which at this point I'm like, quit the drip feeding, just put out what you got, and then like
I would have liked like the red and blue and yellow soundtracks,
those would be
like the
cool.
old Game Boy soundtracks, the iconic ones.
The Ruby and Sapphire Emerald soundtrack would be cool.
Yeah,
Heart
why
Gold Soul,
why not?
yeah. But hey, new music. Drip Nintendo continues to drip feed music
Mm.
because they think that's a good idea.
Well, if they keep drip feeding at this consistent rate, maybe in a year it'll be okay.
Yeah, I
Whereas
mean,
the NSO apps took years.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah. I mean, it's something. I mean, at least we have options for what it's worth.
If you really want to listen to these soundtracks, you can just look them up on YouTube.
Until Nintendo pulls them down because they want to put them on their app.
I mean, I don't know if they have yet.
They a few have been taken down.
Okay.
I've seen it happening, so we'll see.
Dumbasses. Anyways, finally, we're at our game for this week, and that is the great, the powerful, the elusive Myst.
And
Didn't
like
we get a
most,
YouTube comment the other day about how like some dude waited for 45 minutes for us to shit on the game he liked?
no, no. It was this guy was mad that we spent 40 minutes bullshitting and then we barely talked about Kenji Ino in the Warp episode.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, there wasn't a huge amount to say about him,
No, that
you
was
know.
that was us trying to talk about Warp and realizing there wasn't much to say about Warp.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to
We didn't say anything bad. Like we didn't even
No,
shit
not
on
at
Warp
all.
that badly. I mean, we shit on D, but D deserves it. So
And one of these days we'll play D2.
yeah,
Oh God.
which is actually the third game.
Don't get me started.
So I did want to show something off. So fun fact, this like most copies of Myst out in the world, because Myst is on fucking everything.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
this came with my original FC1 when I bought it. They just threw this in, so
That's
I
great.
got Myst. But I also wanted to showcase because I thought it was funny. I found this when I moved into my house because I got all my childhood stuff. This is my old PC game binder from like when I was a kid because I had
It
one of
being
those.
Hot Wheels suits you.
I had the Hot Wheels computer. If you've ever seen that,
I've seen the Hot Wheels computer. Oh, that's amazing. I can't believe I never assumed of like, oh, Bill probably had that.
yeah, that
That's good. Do you still have any Hot Wheels? Do you collect Hot Wheel cars?
I have NASCAR diecasts.
Uh,
I mean,
Oh, okay. But you don't keep them in the box or anything.
actually, there's a couple on the wall over there.
Okay,
Believe it or
yeah,
not.
because when I worked at my retail job, we had Hot Wheels, and Hot Wheel collectors they're a thing. They're kind of
Yeah,
a parasitic bunch.
I'm not that crazy. I get diecasts if I see them and I like them, and I'll put them on the
Yeah,
wall.
I do have one Hot Wheel if you can see it back there. It is the car from You Only Live Twice,
Nice.
which the only reason I bought is because I'm more of a James Bond fan than anything. So
Hmm. I was laughing though because I pulled this thing out and it's full of a whole bunch of edutainment shit. Like, got some living books, Arthur.
oh hell yeah!
Um,
Did you have any
edutainment.
clue finders in there?
No clue finders. I got a whole bunch of Hot Wheels shit
Of
because
course,
it
yeah.
came with that. But the thing I wanted to bring up was where is it here? A bunch of racing stuff. Oregon Trail Third Edition. That was a fun one. Um,
Yes.
Mavis Beacon teaches typing.
That copy of Oregon Trail, is it the it's not the original Apple II version. Is it the one
No,
where they tried to have like more graphics and like
it's
when you go into the towns, it's almost like you can kind of roam around in first person and like chat with
so
people?
it's the one where you go in first person, but all the people are full motion video.
Okay, I don't think I've seen the FMV one. The one I remember was they were just like sprites.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That was two, I believe. 'Cause-
Okay, that's the one I remember.
So, but fun fact: out of all the free game, because when you bought when the Hot Wheels PCs were kind of a gimmick PC, um, I my mom I feel bad because I dumped on this PC in the past, and my mom spent a lot of money on them back in the day, so I do want to tell her I appreciated it as a kid. I've just history has shown those PCs were not the greatest.
Well, and
Um,
it's like PCs back then were so expensive
oh
and they're
yeah,
not nearly as powerful as PCs today. Like I guarantee you the shitty little laptop that I spent like maybe $700 on that I'm recording this on is more powerful than that guy was. You
most
know?
likely they were.
It's just tech, that's
Oh
all.
yeah. No, I say it. I said it kind of as a joke in an old GNC. I didn't want to upset my mother because she did pay a lot for those back in the day, and we did appreciate them as kids. It's just nowadays I've seen enough videos on them to know that they were kind of they were interesting. That's the way I'll put it. But they came with a whole bunch of software, and I always
Yeah.
laugh because like everything that came with software, it came with a copy of Myst.
So you played it as a kid?
Oh yeah, well played is an a way of putting it. I kind of clicked around on shit and didn't get very far.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's most people's original experience with Myst.
But
So
I
when
did
we were saying it was on everything, according to Wikipedia, it was released on Mac OS, Sega Saturn, PlayStation, 3DO, Windows, Atari Jaguar CD, CDI, Amiga OS, Pocket PC, PlayStation Portable, Nintendo DS, iOS, Nintendo 3DS, Android, Oculus Quest 2, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. And that is combining all the various versions of Myst that have been made over the years, which we will get to.
yeah, this is like what like I was joking because when I had mentioned on Discord that I was playing this game in a friend of the show, Dave Jackson's server, his comment was, "Are you playing Myst for a podcast?" I said, "Yeah, 3DO," and his response was, "Of course it's on 3DO," and I'm like, "It's on everything."
Yeah, was he? Apparently, it was planned for the Sega CD, but it never got off the ground.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
at least from what I've seen, there was a plan to bring it to Sega CD, but it just didn't happen. My guess is the hardware capabilities of the Sega CD probably weren't good enough for Myst, because what Myst is doing as a game, like it was made for Mac OSs at the time, and
yeah,
obviously the Sega CD was not as capable with its limited. Like even the original '93 version, I think has more going on. And my guess is nobody wants to play Myst where the screen is like this big. You
yeah.
know?
Pre-renders on the Sega CD were not the best. Like it
No.
struggled a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, this game came out, I believe, September 30th, 1993,
Hmm.
and it was created by Cyan Inc. or Cyan Worlds Inc. or whatever, and they still
So
exist.
they're known as Cyan Worlds these days. Back in the day, they were just Cyan Inc., I believe.
Yes, yes. And it was formed by two brothers, Rand and Robin Miller, who, they
They're
had
an
had.
interesting group. They're an interesting duo.
They are, because yeah, Rand. I watched a bit of an interview with him, and he said he fell in love with gaming in like when he was in college in like the late '60s or early '70s or whatever, and he was playing this game where it was like you're having to like land a rocket ship, and it's just lines of code, like no graphics at all. And he said that's what hooked him on games ever since, and he got really into the computer stuff. And then his brother Robin Miller was much more of like the artist who would like make music and do the
Mhm.
drawings and whatever.
He did the
And they
soundtrack for the game.
Yeah, he did. And together they formed Cyan, and they made a couple games before Myst, like the Manhole and what else were they? Yeah, there's the Manhole, Cosmic Osmo, and the Worlds Beyond the Mackerel. What a fucking title! And then a game called Spelunks and the Caves of Mister Suido.
Hmm.
And these games are all like fantasy adventures that are more meant for kids, and they operate almost kind of like on like a flip book kind of a thing, where it's like you see one still image or say like almost like a gif basically, and you can interact with it in certain points, and when you do that activates like a different card where it's like, oh, you move over here, and then that kind of thing. Like, because the Manhole, it starts out with there's a manhole and there's a fire extinguisher or a fire hydrant, and the idea is you're just instantly like, oh, what's under the manhole? Like, why is the fire hydrant there? And it's able to take that sort of natural curiosity that you have and allow them to create this pretty interesting world that it's in.
Oh yeah, like their games. So Myst nowadays gets a lot of crap because it's admittedly a bit obtuse and it has not aged the greatest. But for '93, like this game was different.
Yeah, because Myst is taking those ideas from, say, the manhole
Hmm.
and crafting something that they said was more adult. That they
Yes.
said this could be something for adults to like more so than children, really. And like 3D rendering software was becoming a new thing in '93, so they were able to take advantage of that. And through that, they were able to create the game we know as Myst, which is, yeah, just this small island that you're just kind of placed into, and you just are dropped there, and you just kind of roam around and just try to figure out what the hell is going on. And yeah, it is very obtuse because the only real story you get is right at the start, where you just like fall through a fissure in space, and
Hmm.
there's a book, and then the book lands, and then you just open the book, and there's a little CG entrance for the Mist Island, and then you go in, and it's that iconic first shot of you on the dock,
Oh
and
yeah.
then you just kind of roam around basically, and like you'll find random things. It's like, oh, this does things, but this doesn't do things, and then there's a library in here, but half the books are burnt, and what is that gear? What's that spaceship? What's that clock tower? Like all these things that if you're playing it nowadays, like say you just download it on Steam, you're not going to know what the fuck to do, because I
No.
imagine this is a game that you needed the manual for to read through.
This was a game that. So I remember as a kid, I never got far because you literally the way this game is played is you have to basically the whole concept is you have to click on something and then you got to go figure out what that did. And then once you figure out what that did, then you click on something else. And it's literally you're figuring out all these little puzzles and things that open up different things in the world. Like you can literally miss an ending by just not pressing a button that's randomly placed near the beginning of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and yeah, it's such a but it's such a unique experience, and it does a good job of immersing you in this world that it makes you want to keep playing. Because the first time I played this was on the Saturn. When I was Saturn collecting, I found a copy of it for pretty cheap, and I knew the sort of kind of legend of Myst because, as we had said before, it was the best selling PC game for like 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Like when it came out in '93 until The Sims in like 2002, it was the best selling game on the PC with over like I think it was like 6 million copies, which is pretty good. You know,
Which I
nowadays that's considered potentially a failure, but back then that's like, you're peaking, man, because there
which
wasn't that many PCs out there like computers. Like I like that's the thing on Mac. I think it did okay, but I think it's when it hit PC
oh
is when
yeah.
it blew up.
Well, it's really funny because there's versions of Doom that came out after Myst that claim the best-selling PC game ever, and everyone's like, "Yeah, Myst has been out for a while, bud."
Yeah, very different games too.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, when I played this on the Saturn, I had no fucking idea what I was doing,
No,
but I
it
but
is.
but it's so interesting when you get dropped in that world. It does such a good job of drawing your eye into these different scenarios.
Well,
And like when I first played it, I was always worried like, oh, is something gonna come out and get me? You
it's a
know?
very
'Cause
unsettling yet
it
beautiful
it
game.
it feels scary because we've played many a horror game that's like set up like this to where you're all by yourself, there's barely any music, and you're just kind of waiting for something to come out and jump at you. But that never happens ever.
The you know what it is too? The lack of other people, like not counting the full motion video segments, which I love. Um,
Yeah. I didn't
this
know those were there for a very long time.
well, it's interesting. We'll get into the remake later, but like they got rid of those in the remake, and that's actually one of the main reasons why people dislike the remake is the lack of the FMVs.
They patched them back in
I do know about
because
the
people because
patch.
people complained about it, so they gave you the option to add them back in.
Because
Which, funnily enough, those characters, those three characters, are all Rand Miller. It's just him playing all three various
oh yeah,
characters, which is
he
pretty cool.
he's an interesting character. Like he'd actually be an interesting guy to have his own episode on at some point, just because of like
Oh yeah, like
how
an episode on Cyan World, basically.
because
Because after playing Myst and finally beating it, I kind of want to play the other Myst games.
well,
Not gonna lie.
it's the thing too that I love is like because there is like the world is like devoid of like any sort of life. When I say life, I mean like other characters because the game is very full of life in other ways.
Oh
It's
yeah,
it's such it gives this weird, uncanny yet beautiful feeling when you play it because you're always like you look off at the distance, you're like, "Ooh, what is that?" And you'll head over to it, and you'll just kind of be like looking at this thing, and you're like, your brain's just like trying to process exactly what's going on, and the lack of story, I think, actually enhances the experience because it really makes you think about everything you see.
yeah. This game is like the predecessor for those open world games. They're like, see that mountain, you can climb it. You know,
Mm,
like everything you see in Myst, like not just the main island, but the other islands, the other
mm,
areas you go to, you can explore all of it, all to your heart's content. And when you learn that it's like, oh, there's no combat, there's no like nothing's gonna pop out and kill me or anything like that, you can kind of settle down and just kind of let yourself get immersed in what's in this little like just the first island of Myst already like has so much first being so small, there's so much stuff. There's that planetarium which you can mess around with and look at constellations. There's like the spaceship, there's all the various switches, there's that log cabin that has the heater in there. There's
mm.
the one building that goes down underground and you have like all of these like engine generators and all these various switches.
I hate that
There's
puzzle so much.
there's a hidden door. There's a hidden door right by the docks where you can go in, and then like you have to enter in things correctly. Like literally, if you miss that first note, you could just wander around and not do anything.
Oh yeah, because
Because
the
because the thing is with Myst, everyone complains about how obtuse and like it doesn't tell you anything. in like a modern game sense where they put everything in your face, like do this, do that, do this, do that, right? Like puzzles aren't a thing anymore, right? Like this game, it gives you all the information you need. It just gives it in a completely different way than we're accustomed to. Like if you want to get Myst going, the first thing you do is like you head to the planetarium, you see a note on the ground. You pick up that note and it's to Catherine, and it's Artreus, is that his name?
Yeah.
Like yeah, basically saying like, hey, go to that hidden spot in the, by the dock, and then enter the number of of switches that are around the island, and then click that button to read to hear a message from me, you know. And then you go there, and then that's when you see the first of the FMV segments. And I like how the FMV segments are put in here. They're very tastefully done, despite it's all Rand Miller. Like
Yeah.
every single character, like he's Artreus. I feel like I'm saying his name wrong. Yeah, there's Artreus, there's Cirrus, and Aknir.
I think so.
There's his two sons who are trapped in the red and blue books, and then Artreus, and they're all done by Rand Miller. And basically, throughout the game is where you learn about like how you got here in the first place, what all of these little things do, and you learn all this important stuff. And then you go into the library, and they have those books, and the game wants you to read the text in all four. It's like 4 or 5 books, like all of it, like write all the text, like read all the text, draw down the diagrams, take notes. Like it's a pencil and paper kind of a fucking game.
Yeah.
Especially when you learn that, oh, you can go into other worlds, as I had mentioned, like these various contraptions hold other books that take you to other worlds. And so you go to those other worlds or ages, and then you solve the puzzles that are within those to get red and blue pages to add in to those books. And then that's when you're starting to like, you slowly start to piece it together, of like what's going on. And yes, I use the guide for this. Absolutely. I'm not crazy.
It's a guide game. Like
absolutely.
Unashamedly, it is a guide game.
And there are some really good guides out there that don't just hold your hand the whole way and tell you how to solve the puzzles. They basically say like, oh, go here, do this thing, like keep track of this. Like it'll say like, oh, like read this book and like make note of like the diagrams that you see in here before we go on to like the next thing. Like it's basically saying like, oh, here are the things you should worry about, but go and solve it on your own. So if you want to have that experience, you very well can have that experience. And I'm glad that, as far as I know, the modern versions don't add in any kind of hint system or make it like, oh, just go do this and you're fine, because it kind of takes away the power that Myst can have on the player.
Yes, the remake really the only real changes they made was the game is now full 3D, which is both impressive, but it also kind of takes away a bit of the mystique of Myst, in my opinion.
Well, there are various different versions of Myst, so we can get into this now if you want. There's the original 93 version, which is what most of the console ports were based on. And then in 2000, 99 or 2000, they did the Masterpiece Edition, which is the version I played, and is, if you want to play old school Myst on PC, that's the way to go.
It cleans up a lot of the imagery and it brightens a lot of stuff up, because the original game is like playing this game is dark at points and you can't see shit.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's called Myst Masterpiece Edition. And let's see, the description on Steam is, it was released in 2000. It's as close to the 1993 experience of playing Myst as you can get. You'll interact with everything, but it says it has 24-bit color, remastered score, enhanced sound effects, as close as you can get to the original version as you can get, basically, without hunting down the original 93 version. But the 2001, it's still the same game. They just cleaned up some things that needed to be cleaned up. And then it was in like the late 2000s, early 2010s when they did Real Myst. And Real Myst was the version where it's like, oh, it was sort of like the first remake of it, where you could start to like, walk around like more like explore it like a 3D sort of experience.
I believe it ran off a similar engine to what Myst 5 ran off, because Myst 5 was the first one that went 3D.
Yeah, I believe it runs on Unity. I think. where it's like it's using like real-time 3D graphics. They add in like weather effects, day and night cycles, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was the original Real Mist in 2000 was that, but then in 2014 is when they did the Real Mist Masterpiece Edition, which is that, but then the game's running in Unity and is sort of like where you can walk around and everything. And then in 2020 is when they did the Myst remake, which originally was just for VR, which makes
Yes.
sense. Like Myst would be an interesting VR experience.
Hmm.
And then like a year later, they ported it to, I think it was like, yeah, Xbox and Switch as like non VR experiences as well as on PC. So there's quite a few different versions of Myst. Yeah, I know the remake. A lot of people don't like sort of the lighting choices they chose and the lack of the FMV cutscenes at the start. And yeah, I can see those kind of harming it. I don't mind the idea of just like roaming around it in like a 3D environment.
I played Real
I really
Mist
don't.
back in the day, and Real Mist was an interesting experience, especially after playing. Once if you played the original, going to Real Mist was different because you were like, "Wow, this is like." It was good, but it was also like it kind of messed with your head because you just weren't used to experiencing the game that way.
Yeah. Like after I've beaten this, I kind of want to do the Real Mist where you can like actually like kind of roam around and sort of like, get more of them like a modern first person experience with it. Because there is a charm to the point and click styles of Myst for sure. But there are definitely some areas, especially later in the game, where the point and clicking can really get you confused.
That weird boardwalk segment in the woods. Fuck that.
Yes.
I hate that
Like
segment.
like like the original like when you're on the ground and you have to go to the windmill to like turn on the water and then you have to constantly change the channels. And half the time I was like, where the fuck am I? Like I would get lost the whole time.
Especially for
And then
those puzzles where like you have to do a thing on one side of the island and then go all the way to the other side
yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Yeah,
back and
and in
forth.
that same one, I believe it's called Channelwood. Like in that same one, you go up like an elevator into like these tree houses. And then yeah, the tree houses are a complete maze.
Oh yeah.
And in point and click land, they all kind of look the same.
Uh-huh.
So you're just like, where the fuck am I going? But you eventually figure it out, you know. Um
Thankfully, there's no penalty for just wandering around lost. So
oh yeah, the game does not punish you at all. Like literally there's no like you can't die. There's no punishment for getting a puzzle wrong or messing something up, but the game doesn't tell you if you messed anything up. So you just kind of have to keep track of literally everything.
you likely will not get the good ending the first time you play.
It depends. It
Yeah.
depends. Because basically what you find out later on as you go through the game is the more red and blue pages you're getting, you're seeing the two sons who are essentially trapped in those books, and they're sort of telling you about things that have been like going on, and they're kind of at war with each other, but they're also like mad at their father. So, and eventually when you get all of like you do all the pages, right? Like you go all to the different ages, um, and you get all the pages. They say like, oh, there's a place behind when you go in the fireplace. There's a little red button, and there's a specific diagram you have to draw. And when you do, you get that secret panel with the green book and the final pages,
Yep.
right? And they say, just give me the page, and we'll be good. But don't open the green book because it'll trap you, right? And so if you give either brother the final page, that is a bad ending because that you essentially swap with them. They trap you in their book and they rip all the pages out.
Yeah, you because there's the Cirrus ending, the Acnear ending, the Atris ending, and then there's the second Atris ending, which is the good
Yes.
ending.
Yeah. So Atris is the father of the two of them. And when you open the green book is where basically you get all the story,
Yep.
basically of what's going on. Like Atris is like, hey, like I'm Denis, I believe. I think that's like their like the family or wherever. And they have like the ability to create like immersive worlds in books, like to the point where when you flip open the last page of their book, you get sucked into the world, which is how you got sucked into Myst. Because he's like, I am the creator of Myst, and he goes on about how I think it was his sons had kind of been abusing that, or were kind of like they were in conflict. So in a sense, he trapped them in those books so they could not cause any more damage. and he said, go ahead and leave him in there, and then find the final page, which is in a very specific spot. I won't say where. I want you to figure it out if you haven't. Um, and then you go into Denis, which is the green book, and give him that page, and that's the good ending, basically. Where
Yeah.
then he like destroys the two books with his sons in them, and then you're left to just kind of roam Myst as you want, basically, and that's it. And he talks about how there's like a greater foe out there, which is setting up Riven.
Yes.
So yeah, it doesn't have a huge amount of story. It comes in at the end,
There
and
is
it adds that little mystique.
yeah. There are supplementary novels that were written after the
Yes.
fact that give you a lot more of the info, which I am actually curious to like look into those. I'm actually, if they have audiobook versions, I might actually give those a check those out at some point.
Yeah, because and both the Miller brothers were like involved in those books as well. So it's all like official stuff. And yeah, it's just like I'm surprised at how intrigued I was by Myst
It's
as a complete package. Like there wasn't no like unveiling the curtain and the emperor has no clothes. Like that never happened. Like when it ends, you're just like you still have all these questions.
oh yeah.
Like why are
It's
these things the way they are? Why did you do this? Like who? Like where the fuck is Catherine? Which you
oh
learn
yeah.
is his wife. I don't know if it's implied she's the mother of the sons. I assume she is. I don't know if they ever say one way or the other.
I haven't played any of the sequels in a very long time. Like
I've never played any of them.
I've played all I haven't played 5. I've played the first 4 because they're easily enough to find on consoles. 5 never has been released on console.
Yeah, because that's when Ubisoft was publishing them.
Yes.
Back when Ubisoft did weird things.
Yeah. That old Ubisoft logo that brings me joy and also is kind of sad.
And you know what's crazy? The original, like the PC and like Mac versions of Myst were published by Broderbund.
Broderbund published like all of these weird PC games.
Yeah, like they were a big deal for a while.
You know what's really weird? So the 3DO version is published by Panasonic.
Yeah.
Panasonic published a bunch of games. But on the back, it says Sunsoft. But Sunsoft had nothing to do with the 3DO version.
Yeah, Sunsoft published the Saturn version in Japan and the EU.
And they also developed it. Like they did the port.
Yes.
Because the company
according to Rand Miller, Myst was kind of jump started by Sunsoft requesting something from them that was like the manhole but more adult. Like according to an interview I saw with him, he said that like Sunsoft had approached them about wanting to do it in the first place. But that was probably years before the game like even came out. So it may be, how contracts can be.
Yeah, because the studio that apparently did the 3DO version was a company called, because Wikipedia actually does list a bunch of the individual developers. Micro Cabin.
Yeah, Micro Cabin. Which was, I believe, it was a Japanese company that did a lot of stuff on 3DO.
And they also developed the port of Tunnel B1, which is a game that is one of the most horrifying covers in video game history.
Let me see. Oh my.
Are you looking at the Wikipedia page cover?
Oh boy.
That's not the that's not the horrifying one.
Which is the bad one, the Japanese one?
Look up the American PS1 cover.
Let's see. Oh my god.
I own that game. And when I bought it because I saw that cover and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Like Tunnel B1 looks like Metro 2033. This looks like a weird like fuck. For some reason it reminds me of what the hell's that Keanu Reeves movie with the bus? That Driver?
Maybe, or
yeah,
Speed?
It reminds me Speed, yeah. It reminds me of Speed. Reminds me of Speed for some fucking reason. I have no idea why. But yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I was not expecting to be reminded of Tunnel B1 in this fucking episode, but here we are.
Yeah. So I gotta ask, how does the 3DO version of Myst run? I assume just fine.
Yeah, fine. It's other than it be looking kind of because it's the original version, it's very dark at points, and
Yeah.
some of the FMVs are a little grainy, but I mean that's FMV in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, even
Um,
the Masterpiece Edition on PC, they're pretty grainy.
the it's a little loady, but a lot of these games were kind of loady at the time.
Yeah. The PC, me playing on here, I had basically no load times at all,
Yeah,
which is great.
I switched over to the Steam version like very fast after. Well, maybe not the Steam, whichever the masterpiece version. I switched over to that
Yeah.
after like about an hour of. I think I got one ending on 3DO, and I was like, yeah, enough of that.
You're like,
It
I've had enough of this.
it's
And then
fine. It's Myst. I've played it.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I can now say I've beaten Myst.
Hmm.
And yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought the whole thing was really cool. Like, yeah,
It's
the puzzles can be a bit obtuse and weird, but I think once you eventually figure out the logic of how they work, and that you just kind of have to like approach everything and make sure you track everything, but before you do anything, like it helps. But I imagine like play times for this game can probably go into like the dozens and dozens.
oh
Like
yeah,
it took me like maybe 4 hours to beat it, and that was having a guide to help me out.
oh yeah. It's an interesting game. Like I like actually watching speed runs of it, just because the way people like the people who know
Oh, yeah,
how
are
to
they doing like 17 seconds? Because really, all you need is that last page. Like
Mhm.
to beat the game, you need to go in the fireplace, do that specific diagram, and then get all that stuff. You can ignore basically everything,
Oh yeah,
everything else.
that's how I got the good ending. Once I realized how you did it, I was just like ran in there because I had already got the bad ending once, and I was like, oh, this is how you do it. I just ran right there and got it.
Yeah, and it's like once you know how easy it is and all that, you're like, I kind of just want to see all the endings,
Oh
and so
yeah,
you go and check all the endings out. You
I
know?
just love the pre-rendered look of this game. Like
Oh yeah,
one of my favorite images is like that image like very early in the game where it's like that well in like the field with like the sunken with like the boat in it.
the sunken ship in it. Yeah.
It's just such a striking visual, and like it sticks with me like whenever I think of this game.
Yeah, I just think of that like iconic first shot of like you're on the dock,
Oh
you have
yeah,
the boat to your right, the gear, like the giant gear right in front of you. Like that is an iconic video game shot right there. It's
like
just like you're dropped into this world and you're like, what the fuck is this? You
the
know?
cover art of the game alone is like
Oh yeah, I love that.
iconic. I do love how the Panasonic rip kind of ruins the fucking guy falling from the sky though.
It
He looks
almost
like
kind of fits because it's almost like he's falling through the fissure
yeah.
in time that he does at the intro, but it's just like that fissure is sponsored by Panasonic.
Have you seen the long box for this game?
I have.
It looks so stupid. Why did they like
Yeah,
do the
they
they
squished it.
they like stuck this image within the long box, but then still put the long box around it. It looks so you'll see it in the
It,
thumbnail. It is such a weird looking long box.
yeah, it's pretty bad when they didn't have to do that. Like they had a nice long box art for it already with like
Oh
the
yeah.
PC version. They didn't have to do this,
But they
but
did because 3DO
yeah,
was weird.
that they were like
So
I know the Sega Saturn um cover, which is it's fine. You know, it's just it's weird that yellow banner is there right
yeah.
next to it, but you know, it's fine.
So before we go into okay must play stay away, I did want to go over like the series real quick because we
By
may
the way,
cover them.
reception was very positive. People
Yeah, this
loved the
is
shit out of this game.
there's a reason this game's on everything. It's literally one of the most iconic games ever made.
Yeah, it's considered it's in that list of like one of the best video games of all time, or like one of the must play video games,
Hmm.
kind of a list. So
So obviously the first game Myst came out, and then we got Riven, the sequel to Myst, as it's called.
I,
Um,
I'm fine with it not being called Myst 2.
I like Riven. I thought Riven's a strike. Riven's a very the
Riven's
cover art.
I love the name Riven. Like Riven sounds cool because it's like Myst where like you change the I to a Y and it's like, oh, what's that? That's interesting.
Hmm.
And Riven is such like a striking name in the original PC box art where it's like just like that ball. It looks
Yeah,
like a
that's
beehive or whatever. Like what the fuck is that?
I have the PlayStation version. It's like 4 discs long. It is. I'm
It's a
very
big
interested.
game. It's a very big game. Yeah, I've now that I've beaten Myst, I'm like I kind of want to play Riven because from what I know, Riven is a direct sequel or it
Yes.
follows Atrus, and I keep feeling I'm saying his name wrong. I'm sorry. And it's basically you're in this area called Riven that I believe is like there's like a guy named Gen who I believe is like the father to Catherine, who is like the wife, and apparently it gets way more deep into the story. And the puzzles are more complex, but it's all connected in the one Riven world. You don't
Yes.
go to like other ages or whatever. It's all contained in the same area. People love Riven. Like
Riven was
people who are big on the Myst series say like Riven's the better game.
and because it was also made directly by Cyan, which
Yeah.
then it gets weird because then we got Myst 3 Exile, which was made by Presto Studios.
Yeah, because after Riven, Robin Miller left
Yes.
Cyan Worlds because he just wanted to do other things. And it was around the same time that Rand was exploring Uru, which
Yes.
the idea was like to do Myst as like an MMO, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that bombed super fucking hard.
Which is sad because Uru is a cool game.
It's a really unique idea, but it bombed twice. like badly bombed because like it's a unique idea, but like I just don't think the idea of Myst was meant to be played as like an MMO.
No, it was a cool idea, but it was never going to succeed, which is sad.
Yeah, though I think if you go on Steam, you can get all of Uru in like an offline experience.
Yeah,
if you want to play the whole thing.
That's how I messed around with it because I didn't play it when it was active by any means.
Yeah, like it is a really unique idea, and you know, respect for trying it, especially in an era where MMOs were not. I mean, this is like 2003, so this is like the pre-WoW days. And by 2003, you know, Myst wasn't as big of a name anymore.
No, because like Myst 3 kind of just
happened.
It was a success, but even in parentheses it says not to the extent of Myst or Riven.
Yeah, like it just says like the new sequel to Myst and Riven, Myst 3 Exile. Like the moment they started like numbering the sequels is like, oh man, like you'd hope they would have just called it like Exiles, the sequel to Riven. You know, they could have just done that. But yeah, I've seen Myst 3 for like Xbox and use stores all the time, and I always go like, oh yeah, Myst had other games. You know, like you kind of forget it's a franchise.
I got it in a dollar bin at a retro store for PS2. That's how common that game is. And then there was Myst
as you
4.
said, and I believe, Presto did Myst 3. Mm-hmm. What the hell else did they do? Oh, they did Whacked. Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
And Stephen King's F-13. I don't want to know what that is.
Now, what's fun is Myst 4 was instead made by the Ubisoft studio that makes fucking everything, Ubisoft Montreal.
Yeah, I guess in this like pre-Assassin's Creed time,
Prince of Persia, like before they really became the workhorse of Ubisoft.
Well, this was 2004, so Sands of Time was out.
True. So they were kind of like they were just getting off the ground, and they probably were like, Ubisoft's like, hey, we have this license, make a fourth game.
Yeah, because Myst 3 did fairly well, like it sold well and reviewed well, so they're like, yeah, fuck it, we'll just keep doing Myst, I guess.
And it's interesting because 4 actually got better reviews, but I think it sold worse.
Yeah, that I'm not sure, and that's because it was mostly on PC, and then they farted out an Xbox version in 05.
Yeah.
Though you think this game would have a bigger audience on PC anyways.
Yeah, for some reason they skipped PS2. I feel like the PS2 version of 3 helped it sell because it was
probably
everyone had a PS2.
Yeah, and then Myst 5, which I didn't know was even a thing.
Myst 5 is interesting because it was so Cyan came back. They decided to make another one. Rand Miller was back. No Robin Miller, which is unfortunate because not saying that's a bad thing. Tim Larkin did a good soundtrack.
Yeah, but like once Robin left after Riven, he never came back.
No, he went off to do his own thing, and that's perfectly fine. 5 is interesting though because 5 was the first one to use a full 3D engine.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard 5 is really good, but it's the only one that doesn't have a console version, so I've never had a chance to play it. I should honestly get the PC version.
Yeah, they're all on Steam. So if you guys want to play these games, they're all available on Steam. Riven even got a remake in the same vein as Myst last year. Actually,
Yep.
Riven got a remake, and from what I know of looking through, say, the Myst subreddit, they love the Riven remake. They're like, it's fantastic.
They probably learned their lessons from the Myst remake, and they were like, okay, don't do this. But
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
else was fine.
yeah. So yeah, the Riven remake, from what I hear, is fantastic. I highly doubt they'll do remakes of the other ones.
I
I
mean, they
doubt
didn't
maybe 3, maybe,
maybe
but I
to
doubt
do it
it.
in their style, but who knows?
Maybe, but Ubisoft probably owns those.
I
Unless Cyan bought them all back for the Steam ports.
Cyan might have bought. I'll have to look at the credits for those.
I wouldn't be shocked if Ubisoft was just like, "Oh, you can have Myst. Yeah, we don't fucking care."
Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
be shocked.
I'm pretty sure Cyan owns the Myst trademark anyway, so they probably defaulted back to them after
Yeah, it could have
Ubisoft.
been a case of like they licensed the IP out to Ubisoft because they were able to fund these games when they were doing the proper sequels to them.
Yeah,
So yeah, looking at Myst 3 on Steam, Cyan and Ubisoft are listed as publishers. Like it still has
okay.
the Ubisoft logo on it. So
Ubisoft probably just collects that royalty check because they need it at this point.
oh, yeah, they're making big bank off of people buying Myst 3 Exile on Steam
Oh
for
yeah,
it's $15. Holy shit.
yeah. Some of that surprised me. I was kind of like, yeah, I think I'll stick to my PS2 copy. Thank you.
Yeah, thankfully if you want to play the Masterpiece edition of Myst and then the original PC version of Riven, they're both $6 a pop, which I think that's
That is
value for money right there.
very, very good. Honestly,
Yeah. Yeah. My guess is Myst 4, 3, 4, and 5 are that expensive because of Myst 5 is only $10, but 3 and 4 are 15.
I blame Ubisoft.
Yeah, I blame Ubisoft for that as well. So,
But
but
yeah,
yeah,
that
I'd like to play these games in the future and kind of see how they were able to keep them going and all that. And yeah, for the most part, people seem to like them. Like people are mixed on 5, but overall, I think people enjoyed the series as a whole for a game that I didn't think was a series.
no.
It's
I mean, I
nice to
always
know that the series is considered good.
yeah. Even the quote unquote non main series. Well, I mean they're main series games, but the non Cyan games are even considered good. So
Yeah, and Uru, I believe, is not. It might be canon with Myst.
it's part of the Myst universe, but it's kind of its own weird thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's in the canon, but it doesn't have. But it's not like a direct tie to it. So
But yeah. So must play. Okay, stay away. I'm gonna just go right ahead and say this is Myst is a must play.
this might have been the most important game we've played on this show. It might end up being the most like important game we play on this show.
It's definitely up there. It's interesting that the fact it's on 3DO is kind of an afterthought in the grand scheme of things, but
Yeah,
the game
'cause
itself
it's
is
yeah, it's an absolute must play. It's fantastic. Like
it,
get a guide and just go ahead and explore this weird funky world and don't be afraid to take your time. Like go around, explore, look around, like see if you can get a feel for what they're doing before you bother to look up a guide,
it's
you
very
know?
interesting to me that like a bunch of people will call this game dated and obtuse, which it is obtuse, but that's not a bad
Yeah.
thing. But like they call it dated, but there are so many indie games that do this exact same thing and get praised for it. And I'm always like, what do you mean it's dated? Like this style is still very viable.
You could argue Myst was the first walking sim.
I mean, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, you point and click everywhere, but the idea is you just, walk around and solve puzzles and occasionally see some story.
There's more
Like,
gameplay in Myst than some walking sims. Let's be real here.
yeah, like if you've played Edith Finch or Firewatch or like any of those notable first person walking sims, it's like, yeah, you can tell Myst was sort of an influence on it, especially with its attention to atmosphere and little details and like having lore, but not too much lore, like enough just to keep you kind of invested, and having like an ending that keeps you wanting more. Because that's a great thing with when Myst ends, what's going on with this dude? Like,
Well, especially because it's such a sparse story game, and then you get this big plot dump right at the end. You're like, what?
yeah. And and you're like, oh, interesting, and they find a good way of making it interesting to where you're like, oh, well, yeah, now I want to play Riven because I want to know what the hell's going
Oh
on,
yeah,
and Riven has a lot of story from what I've been told. So, you know, who
yeah,
knows? Maybe in the future we might just break character and just do Riven.
yeah.
There is no 3DO version of it, but who knows?
I mean, if we're gonna cover like Road Redemption at some point and like a few other games, I think we can get away with it. It's
Yeah, we
tangential.
we can do like a spiritual successor sub series or something.
I mean, we're gonna eventually cover like Gex 2 and 3 at some point. So,
Yeah, they're tangentially connected.
but yeah, Myst. I was actually amazed.
Loved
I
it.
I I loved Myst back in the day, and I was actually kind of amazed. It's still a good game. Still love it.
It has that X factor. It really does.
It's
You know,
timeless.
there is something timeless about it. Really, there is.
Like it's one of those games. Like I feel like this is a game that. Just one last tangent before we sign off.
Mm.
This is a game that I feel like someone who's never played it before, you could like a streamer or something, they could play Myst and they'd probably be hopelessly lost. But at the same time, they'd probably get something out of it that a lot of these like slop games that get thrown out that for streamers to play probably doesn't like leave in there that it wouldn't leave an impression. It would leave more of an impression than those games is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and there are people who still play Myst to this day. I'm sure if we go to like YouTube or Twitch and just look up Myst, we can probably see people like modern like streamers or whatever playing it and trying to figure it out. And it's still like a unique experience to this
Oh yeah.
day. Like even as we had said, there's so many games that do cop from Myst. Myst itself remains much like the island itself, this unique little thing all to its own.
Yep.
That it exists out of place, out of time. It just kind of appeared, and I can see why it was such a big success at the time for
Oh
being
yeah.
something so unique and being on the PC. It wasn't necessarily aimed at children. It was more aimed at adults, and there are probably stories out there of like people being like, oh, my dad bought Myst for PC, and like that's all he did for months on end was just fuck around in Myst
Oh
because he
yeah.
liked it so much.
It's it's a game that inspired so many games, but there is like really no other game like it,
Exactly.
which is
And
why
it's
I think
great.
it stands out.
Yeah, and it's fucking great. I love it.
Mm.
It's great.
It's been a while actually since we've had like a
A
double
good game.
a double month. I think our last few have been okay. So, and even then, those
Yeah.
okay, some of those okays were a stretch.
Yeah. But this one was like, I was glad to finally. That one. I was glad to like check off the list of like one of the big important games.
Oh yeah,
I'd played it many times, but finally like sitting down to see it all the way through, I was happy with that.
like if there's ever a museum of video games, like
I think there is.
it probably is. But like if like I know like when I think of video games and museums, I always think like how Virtual Fighters in the Smithsonian. I feel like this is one of those games that should be in like a real museum, like just for
Yeah.
what it is.
Like honestly, you could just like take a really nice still image of that opening shot in Myst and just have that up in like MoMA in New York or whatever.
I'd actually
You
kind
know?
of want to get the image of the well like framed and just have it as art because it's just such a beautiful image.
Yeah. Or hell, just like a picture of the island, like that front
Oh
cover.
yeah,
There's
hell,
just something really cool about that.
the cover of Riven I actually want to have framed at some point.
Yeah. And there is a National Video Game Museum. It's in Frisco, Texas. It was opened in 2016.
I might need to go there at some point.
Yeah.
Just to see it.
I don't think it's like officially sanctioned by any company, but it
Probably
has
not.
but from what I know, it has a lot of really cool stuff in it.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there is that like Nintendo museum in Japan, which I've heard is pretty cool. But
I mean, there's the Nintendo store in New York where you can look at the Gulf War Game Boy. So
yeah, so there is that kind of stuff. But yeah, and
but,
I think there's a video game Hall of Fame, or
I
there
believe so.
and Myst has to be in there. If it's not, then that's a fraud. Let me
Yeah,
see
it's
the World Video Game Hall of Fame. It was established in 2015. It's in Rochester, New York. So let me look up the list of games that are in here. And yes, Myst is in it. Thank God.
It would have to be. No, this game is so iconic. Like it just has to be.
It was inducted in 2017, so it took 2 years.
Well, they had to get all like the pre-missed games out of the way first.
Yeah, the Manhole is a Hall of Fame game. I don't know about that.
Well, I need like Duck Hunt and Mario in there.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, there's a whole list of them that are there, and looking at the list, I'm like, yeah, I don't think there's anything that doesn't belong. At least nothing I can see. Maybe one, but maybe that's more of I just don't know.
Yeah, but yeah. So that was that. That was actually. I think we talked more about the game than the beginning part for once.
Take that, haters.
Yeah. Oh boy. Anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us on the 3DO Experience. The 3DO Experience can be found on all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to check us out over on the Superpod Network. That is superpodnetwork.com, an awesome site where you can find all sorts of different podcasts, videos, blogs, a whole bunch of cool stuff, and a whole bunch of awesome shows like Superpod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, Tommy's Video Game Ride Along, A Novel Console, Bar Silence, Fine Time, The Elder Trolls Gaming Podcast, Remember 64, Gaming Together, Friday Night Gamecast, Gaming and Collecting, The 3DO Experience, Geek Addicts, The Retro Wildlands, Press B to Cancel, the Pre-Order Bonus Podcast, Retro Mo Reviews. I always forget Mo's show. Sorry, Mo.
We love you, Mo.
We do. And then we have a new show just announced. Tommy's back. That was a quick.
I laughed when I saw that. I'm
Tommy,
like, you quit so he quit his video game ride along to start a new one.
Yep. Tommy and Grant Go Podcasting.
Yeah. I need to sit down and listen to it. I haven't yet.
It's on my queue, so
yeah, like at my job, I imagine once I start getting into the swing of things, I can put on a podcast and work, but I'm not at that point yet. So
yeah.
I'm a little behind.
Yeah. I gotta it's in my queue. Hopefully I'll give it a listen. It's just we've had a lot of shows come out recently that I want to check out.
Yeah. I promise we love you all.
Yeah. Especially the network guys. Like I already tortured everyone with Aaron yesterday. So, oh boy. Love you, Aaron.
I can't wait till my work finds out that I have a podcast.
Yeah.
It's like admitting you're gay or something. Everyone's like looks at you weird.
You know what? It's really funny. Like everybody that I work with knows I have a podcast, but no one's bothered to listen to it. So I'm like, that's probably good.
Oh yeah, like I've had coworkers say, "Oh, I'll listen to it." I always say, "You don't have to."
Yeah,
like, you'll probably not be that interested in it.
You'll be very confused.
Yeah.
But yeah. So once again, guys, thank you for joining us. We will see you all later.
Bye-bye.